All right, let's talk about something that always gets people fired up: the strange modern mystery of why hot girls and rich men often end up single. Now, when I say hot girls, I'm not just talking about looks, I'm talking about women who've got it all: beauty, ambition, confidence, followers, options. And when I say rich men, I don't just mean a guy with a black card, I mean men who've made it: financially stable, successful, ambitious, independent. You'd think these two groups would have no problem in dating, right? They're supposed to be the dream, the most desirable on paper. But somehow, when you really look at it, a lot of them are single, sometimes by choice, sometimes not. So today, we're going to unpack why. Why does the girl who seems to have endless options struggle to find something real? Why does the guy who worked his way to the top feel like every relationship turns transactional, shallow, or just exhausting? This isn't about blaming or shaming. It's about understanding the psychology, the culture, and the weird dynamics of modern dating that make winning in life sometimes harder for your love life. Let's break this down. The paradox of choice. So, the first big reason, and this applies to both hot girls and rich men, is what psychologists call the paradox of choice. In short, when you have too many options, you value none of them deeply. If you're a very attractive woman in today's social media era, you can post one photo and instantly get validation from hundreds of men: likes, DMs, attention, offers. It creates this illusion of abundance. The brain starts to believe, if I can get this much attention doing nothing, I'll never run out of options. And the same goes for rich men. Once you reach a certain level of financial success, suddenly you're surrounded by attention, not just from potential partners, but from people who want something from you. The result? You start to doubt the authenticity of every connection. More options should mean more chances for love, right? But what it actually does is create paralysis. You can't choose because you're always wondering if there's something better. It's like scrolling on Netflix for 45 minutes and then giving up because you can't pick what to watch. You had too many options. So both groups get stuck. The hot girl thinks, he's nice, but maybe I can do better. The rich guy thinks, she's beautiful, but does she really like me or what comes with me? And that cycle keeps them single. Different currencies of value. Let's talk about value mismatches because that's a huge piece of this. Men and women in general are valued for different things in the dating market. Society may not like to admit it, but it's true. A woman's social value often peaks earlier: beauty, youth, social appeal. A man's value often grows later: wealth, influence, power, maturity. So when you have a hot girl who's young, successful, independent, she's used to being the prize. She's used to choosing. And when you have a rich man who's finally achieved everything, he's also used to being the prize. So what happens when two prizes meet? Neither wants to chase, neither wants to compromise, neither wants to surrender their advantage. That's not partnership, that's a standoff. Both sides want admiration, validation, and respect, but few are willing to give it first. And in a world where vulnerability feels like weakness, both end up playing defense. The man wants someone who genuinely cares, but the more successful he becomes, the harder it is to tell who's real. The social media illusion. Now let's throw social media into the mix. Instagram, TikTok, dating apps, they've completely rewired the dating economy. For the hot girl, social media amplifies her visibility and her perceived value. She's not just attractive in her local city anymore, she's global. That means her dating pool suddenly includes millionaires, athletes, influencers, people who are wildly out of reach for most men. For the rich guy, social media does something different. It gives him access to a huge variety of women, but it also exposes him to an endless stream of performative femininity. Women who seem interested but often treat connection like a transaction. You take me on this trip, I'll give you attention. It's like both are caught in this performance, playing exaggerated versions of themselves. So it's not that they can't find love, it's that they're often trapped in a status stalemate. Each side's value system doesn't align. The woman wants someone she can admire, but the higher she rises, the fewer men she feels that with. But behind the filters, the reality is this: both sides feel lonely. The hot girl is tired of being desired but not understood. The rich man is tired of being wanted but not loved. And that's a kind of loneliness that's hard to admit because both are supposed to be winning. The fear of vulnerability. Let's get into something deeper: emotional armor. When people have been rewarded for their surface level traits, looks, or money, they often develop a fear of vulnerability. The hot girl learns early that her looks get her attention, praise, opportunity, but showing softness, fear, or insecurity, that gets judged. She's told to be confident, independent, that girl. So she builds armor. The rich man, he's been told to grind, focus, and never show weakness. Vulnerability doesn't make money, it makes risk. So he builds armor too. And when two armored people meet, even if there's attraction, they can't connect deeply. Because intimacy requires vulnerability. It requires saying, here's who I am when I'm not performing. But if you've lived your whole life being rewarded for the performance, dropping it feels terrifying. So they date casually or they keep things surface level. They say they're focusing on themselves, but really, they're avoiding the risk of being known. The standards game. Let's talk standards, or what I like to call expectations gone wild. Many hot girls are told, don't settle. And that's fair advice. But the problem is, sometimes that gets twisted into only date the top 1% of men. Meanwhile, many rich men develop a reverse version of that. If I've worked this hard, I deserve the most beautiful woman. So what you end up with is a dating market where everyone's aiming for the top, but the top is a tiny group. You get mismatches, unrealistic filters, and a lot of good people being overlooked because they don't check every fantasy box. The irony? Many of these perfect people are just like everyone else, lonely, scared, and searching for something real. Emotional exhaustion. Let's be honest, dating at the top is exhausting. When you've got options, followers, or money, your guard has to be up. Everyone wants something, everyone has motives, and you start viewing relationships through a lens of risk management. The hot girl's exhausted by constant male attention that rarely feels meaningful. The rich man's exhausted by the sense that everyone has a price. Eventually, both start telling themselves, I'm better off alone. And sometimes that's not bitterness, it's self-preservation. But what they often don't realize is that the armor that protects them is the same armor that keeps love out. The path to real connection. Okay, so if that's the trap, what's the way out? Here's the truth. Real connection requires humility. For the hot girl, it means realizing that beauty might open doors, but emotional intelligence keeps them open. That vulnerability isn't weakness, and that choosing love doesn't mean losing power. For the rich man, it means realizing that wealth might attract attention, but character earns trust. That leading with authenticity might scare away the wrong people, but attracts the right ones. Both have to stop asking who deserves me and start asking who aligns with me, because when status, looks, and ego fade, and they will, the only thing that holds is connection. Closing reflection. So, why do hot girls and rich men stay single? Because they live in worlds where everything is abundant, except authenticity, because they've been told to chase more, when what they really crave is meaning. And because sometimes the higher you climb, the harder it is to find someone who meets you, not for what you have, but for who you are. But here's the good news. Once you understand the pattern, you can break it. Love doesn't care about your net worth or your follower count. It only cares whether you can drop the mask long enough to let someone see you. So if you're listening to this and you're someone who's built a lot, achieved a lot, or you've been told you're too much, maybe the truth is you just haven't met someone who can handle your real. And when you do, it won't feel like a performance. It'll feel like peace. Pause. All right, that's all for today's episode. If this one hit home, share it with someone who's out there grinding, winning, and maybe wondering why love still feels complicated. Because sometimes the hardest people to love are the ones who seem like they need it the least.